goes along with kind of my philosophy about everything is you can save yourself a lot of headache at the end or in the middle if you prep your clients first. So for all of my buyers, for all of my sellers, we have a sit down. I don't care if you say we want to go look at this house right now, we're gonna meet for a cup of coffee before. And we do a sit down and go through my buyer's guide or seller's guide, whatever it goes through. And one of my big points that I talked to at the very first time is inspection. Because there's a few points where things are gonna go sideways in the deal. And inspections are normally the financing, I can't do anything about that other than advise you don't go out and buy a new truck a week before closing. But inspection, I have a little bit of control there to steer the ship and keep people from panicking. I'm not making any decisions for them. I'm not telling them what they should do because that's not my lane. And that puts me at a legal risk. If I tell them, oh, that roof's fine, and then it's not fine, I can get sued. So I'm not doing that, but I'm giving them information and telling them so that you can make an informed decision. And then I can advocate for whatever that decision needs to be. So we have a discussion about inspections in general at our very first meeting. And then, if I have a buyer, as soon as they go under contract, they get this sheet again. This goes to their email of when you're scheduling inspections. So this goes to their email. And, we also have talked through it. We've talked about it. It's come up, so they kind of know what to expect. And what I tell them is, if you're a buyer, always come. I'm here to advise you to always do a home inspection. If they choose to listen or not, so be it. And if they're thinking about skipping it, we talk about the implications of that. But I have to advise them to do it, because if I don't, and then there's a problem, that's on me. I don't want it on. I want it on other people. So I always advise them to do a home inspection. I let them know that their inspector will give them all kinds of different types of options. Your general home inspection, absolutely you need to do that. Pest inspection. Well, in Kentucky, pests and termites are the only one that sellers are required to repair. So if you're a buyer, why would you not? If you're a seller, we talk about that going in, and I would say something like, hey, just so you know, on this inspection report, everything is negotiable. Everything they ask for, we can say yes, no, or meet in the middle, something, except for termites. And for termites, it's up to 2% of the sale price. So if we have a $300,000 house and there's $6,000 worth of termite payment, they have to pay that. But I also tell them, I have seen several that have had termite issues. Most of the time, it's cost between $800 to $1,200 a fix. And the most I've seen on a massive house that had outbuildings and a pool house and all of this, the most I've seen was about $45. So I give them not great information. Hey, Mr. Tully, you might have to pay for a termite repair. But then I follow it up, I'm hoping to could giving them the information so that they don't go to such a. One thing I've learned, when people don't know something, they immediately go to worst case scenarios. Well, I don't know how much a foundation costs, it must cost $10,000. No, sir, it doesn't. Let's talk this through before they get to payment. Does that make sense? 90% of this job is just managing emotions. So if you can have these conversations up front and let them know that some of these things, yeah, like mold. Mold sounds really scary. If your inspector says, oh my gosh, there might be a mold issue in this basement, that's definitely something we want to check out. If I'm talking to a seller and a buyer has said, my inspector feels there might be mold, they have to agree with them. They need to get that checked out. But guess what, Mr. Seller? Most of the time, from what I've seen, it'll cost $600 to $1,000 back unless it's something you. Don't let them Google. Give them some piece of information to keep them off of the group. Even if that is, or that should be a range. You are never saying anything to fit it. You're never saying, oh, that's not a problem. Just, when I've seen this before, it's been about this. And then turn it over to the experts, but you know what we're gonna do, here's what we're gonna do. In my vendor list, I've got 2 mold guys, and I'm gonna give you that phone number, and they are gonna come out, and they are gonna give us that exact. So we don't have to panic, and we know exactly what we're asking. Me personally, a big one that I do tell my people is radon inspection in Georgetown. I've had 5 or 6 in the last year and a half, that have all popped high for radon in Georgia. So, yeah. So I kind of tell people that, do what you want, I'm not telling you what to do, but I'm giving you information that I know, and you can proceed accordingly. It's kind of how we do. I'm also on this sheet and things that we've talked about. Have for them, these are generally what we see when something comes up. We might see roof, we might see plumbing, we might see electric, we might see HVAC, structure, moisture, safety, all that. And now they panicked on me. So now I discuss again, remember last time I had somebody, we went in the basement and there were like 3 cracks in the foundation. We had the inspector look at it, we got a foundation guy out there. It cost me $1,200 to fix it. So once you can put it in perspective for them, it takes the fear away from these. I also talk to them about the inspection period and remind them, here is your inspection deadline. In fact, I have an email template that as soon as we are under contract, and as soon as I send them the yay, congratulations, we're under contract, I'm gonna take a moment, most of the times at night, I'll say, enjoy tonight. I'm gonna send you an email with all of your next steps that we've talked about, and you can check that email. And then I have an email template. If you are gonna send an email more than 5 times, make it a template.
Yeah, I've been working.
Hopefully I'm gonna send an email that says, yeah, you're under contract more than 5 times. So I have it as a template, and it talks about earnest money, it talks about scheduling the inspector, and that's when they get this. And I have in there in bold, inspection deadline this day, closing deadline this day. And then I have another, remember, closing is a target, don't schedule your movers yet. Those 2. And then I also give them on the rest of it, this is my
Carrie Cheek was the one that did the PLE.
Carrie's great.
She was so
great. In fact, she's doing the inspection for my folks Wednesday.
Awesome.
But these are, they have this list of my recommended, and then I even put on here, if you want to go ahead and contact a pest inspector. If you want radon, most of these guys will do radon themselves, but if we actually need to remediate radon. So this helps my seller feel better, oh, Tricia knows what she's doing, she has these pros, we can call her, we can call these. The other thing I do, so they get this when they go under contract. The other thing I do, once we have gotten inspection scheduled, all the things. Either 1 or 2 days before their inspection, either for buyers, they get another email from me. And I tell them it's coming, and I say, hey, check your email. I'm gonna send you some information about what to expect. I honestly think you can tell some people you need to tell, and some people need to read it, right? So I think having both helps it kind of sink in a little bit, and having it back in their email that they can refer to. So basically what I'm telling them is a couple things that come up. This comes up a lot. There will be a roof, there will be a foundation, there will be a whatever. That the inspector, because again, they have to stay in their lane too. They are not a roofer, they are not a foundation guy or gal. They have to stay in their lane too. So there's going to be things on an inspection report that say, this might be an issue, we need to call in an expert. And I've talked to them about that they're going to tell you that, because they have to tell you that. It's then up to you to either pick up the phone and call your inspector and ask them. Or the best ones, and everybody on my list will have your client meet them there at the end of the inspection, so they can talk through the big things in person, and they can allay it. Does that make sense? And if you have an inspector who panics your people, do not use that inspector. I will tell you that right now.
And Carrie's not gonna kick panic them, and the one Andy Deere,
Mhm.
I've used hers and I've gone to 2 of her inspections and.
Yeah.
She's like, here's what I found and this is what you can do to fix it.
Yeah. Yeah, and then they calm some down, and they'll even say like, I have to put that on there, but it's not, things
Yeah.
like that. If they're not having those conversations, find news. So I told them that too, that you're going to see this, which could panic people. But we've talked about it and now they're not gonna panic. The other thing that I do, and when I use this in the buyer consult, so they've seen this example before. Imagine you're buying a new car and you take it and you ask the mechanic everything that's wrong, and you tell them, I want you to know everything. So they're gonna tell you there's a scratch on the door. And you're gonna say, oh, no big deal, I can live with that, maybe. I can live with that. They might tell you the tire needs air or it's out of gas, and you're gonna say, so what, I can do that, I can do that. Or they might say, there's a big old crack in your carburetor. And that one's gonna make you say, okay, wait a minute, now what do I need to do? So we're gonna have levels of information in this inspection report, and you have to prepare your client for that. Or else they're gonna think everything's a problem. Everything's a problem. So we have to kind of prep them that there are certain things we're gonna need to focus on and certain things we're not. And I kind of, even when we get to negotiation, these are the things that I try to have them categorize. What can we live with? What can you handle? And what do you need an expert for to at least give us a second opinion? So we kind of put things into those ballparks. Now, a lot of the inspectors will color code things or have things categorized. Blue, orange or yellow, red, which is really helpful, but you also might see a red says the smoke alarm's not plugged in. Does that mean we're not gonna buy the house? No, it means, okay, are we gonna ask them to do that? Probably not, it just means I'm gonna make a note. And right after we close, you're gonna get an email and you're remember all these things and it's gonna say, plug in that smoke alarm. So here's what I tell my people. These are the things we're looking for. What is gonna be a danger or dangerous? If it's dangerous, we don't want it, or we need it fixed. What is gonna cost a lot on us later if we don't fix it now? And what can I fix myself or call my brother Bob who's handy and can do it? And which ones can I just live with? Because depending on the market, y'all, this is as good as we're gonna get in your price range. Can we live with it? Because if you say you can't live with it, they have 5 more offers. And they're gonna say, bye, and we'll find somebody who can. So those are conversations you have to prep your clients with. I also tell them these are the things that we're absolutely looking for: safety, system, structure. So electrical wiring, mold, asbestos, lead, all the scary stuff. But notice I say it's worth a deeper conversation. It's not, we're out. And I talked to them about that too, that a lot of these things sound scary. It sounds super scary if they're like, oh my gosh, there's a termite infestation. Well, you know what, that language that means like there's 2 termite tubes in the garage. And for $600, termite plus, I'm making that up, will come and fix it in 2 hours. You know, it doesn't mean we have to run away. Also, things that would cost a lot if they need replaced, HVAC, plumbing, all of those things. And then foundation, roof, or construction. So those are things that, again, we look into further. It doesn't mean we're not buying a house. It doesn't mean we panic. But then I walk them through. Ideally, we get the report and they're like, all's good, we move forward. If not, we can take another step. Okay, there might be a foundation issue. That doesn't mean we ask for $10,000 in credit. It means we have a foundation person come and tell us what the problem is and how much it costs to fix, so we know what we're dealing with. Maybe we're gonna ask for a credit, maybe we're gonna ask for the seller to fix it, maybe we're going to ask for a price reduction, whatever. So that's the email that they get before the inspection. Any questions about anything for before inspection?
I don't have any questions, but something that I got out of the class with Carrie the other day was that you can set them up for the inspection when you go and look at that house.
Yes.
you
Yes.
can say, hey, the house was built in XYZ.
You
year.
should,
So
every
we may
single
need to
showing.
look at the electrical, we may need to look at the plumbing. These things may be, and she told me, which I wasn't aware, that you could turn on the water.
Yeah.
Flush the toilet
yeah.
and the shower all at the same time and
Oh,
see
yeah.
if you see the fluctuation in
Yeah.
the water.
Yeah.
So that you're preparing them prior to the inspection of, hey, if you see that dip in waters, there's probably something in the pipes that's gonna need to be looked at.
Yeah.
You have restriction there, looking at, you know, hey, the flooring may need to be repaired, or the smoke detector doesn't have carbon monoxide, so it's
Yeah.
things that you can talk to them about even before they even make an offer on
Yeah.
it. And say, hey, this is a great house, but here are some of the things that are probably gonna pop up on inspection.
I love that she said that. I tell my.
It was fantastic, and but she gave us all, I thought this was fantastic. She gave it,
Oh, nice.
so you can check it. And
Yeah.
see if-
Oh, is that electrical? Yeah.
Yeah, and if it's tripping or not.
One that, and I said, this is my birthday request for this year. I want a moisture meter, so I can have it at showing instead of waiting for the inspector.
Right,
I won't have, yeah, but yeah.
but yeah, it was awesome.
And you should, in every showing, I keep kind of, I've got my tablet and I've got on there, the year was built. Year for HVAC, year for water heater, year of the roof. All of those should be on your solar system. If they're not, I also tell them. That's a yellow flag. It doesn't mean there's a problem with it, but it means it's not new enough that whoever owns this house right now knows. Now, that doesn't mean it's bad, and I do tell my people this, say we're looking at a house and it says HVAC 25 years old. We're gonna look at the machine, and I'm going to tell them then, your inspector is going to say that HVAC is 25 years old. The lifespan of an HVAC is 20 to 25 years. Your inspector is going to say, this is probably at the end of its life. But the seller is going to say, but it works, and you knew that when you made the offer. So that one is not, and I'm willing to fight for you on a lot of things. That one is hard, I can tell you right now, 99% of your sellers are not going to pay for a brand new HVAC. When the one that's there is working.
Right.
And as it's old, and you can proceed accordingly with your offer, maybe we ask for a home warranty. 500. I paid for, okay, y'all home warranties.
Oh, yeah, this American
Yeah.
home warranties, fantastic,
Yeah.
I've worked with Emily before, she's
Yeah.
amazing, but yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
So the more you can kind of, or when I'm going through a house, I'll like, ooh, you don't feel that? This floor's like, moving up, I'll say, don't say marbles, you're not doing marbles from here, or whatever it will be. So that we've talked about it, and I tell myself, again, if the buyer comes up, I'll tell them. Look, you might feel like I'm being negative about some houses, but I look at it this way, if we already are aware of the potential problems. And you still want to make an offer, that means it's a good house for you. But if we aren't aware, and then you make an offer, and then you find out about issues, now we're in a big.
Right.
So we're gonna talk about it, or I'm gonna say, ooh, do y'all see that? That looks like a spot on the ceiling, could be nothing, could be something. So we just make sure that we're having those conversations, right? Yeah, again, the more you can discuss things up front. the
And
more
they don't
headache
feel
it is.
taken by surprise.
Yes,
Yeah, I was really pleased with Carrie bringing the stuff up and saying, hey, these are some things that you can do, to pair them. And then the other thing that she told everybody in the class was, hey, make sure that you're telling your clients when you start, like in the beginning, this is not a pass or fail.
right,
This is
Right.
not a pass or fail. Every house is gonna have problems. Another thing that she mentioned was like pointing out landscaping to people and saying, hey, the trees are really close to the roof. There's a potential that they've rubbed
Yeah.
the asphalt, the shingle.
every house that has mulch, the inspector is going to say, there's mulch against the house, that could be a term.
Yeah.
They're going to tell you that, that's their job, because if they don't, and then there are termites, then you can sue them.
Interesting
So-
thing on that. one of my friends that just bought her house, she didn't have mulch. She went to Lowe's,
Yeah.
bought mulch,
And it had termites in it.
In mulch.
Yeah.
Close.
she just got the bag, of
Yep.
mulch.
Yep.
And I was talking to, one of the realtors, he's like, yeah, that we can see a big pickup in that, if you get the regular mulch, that's not bagged.
Yeah.
You gotta get the no termites, but if you get the bag, it's got the moisture.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yep. And just keep that in mind. So that's kind of all that we'll do before, during, and after, so that's kind of all the before. Or during. I was advised at the very beginning, again, stay in your lane. Let the inspector do the inspection and don't go. That's what I was advised. I don't know what they're advising y'all now. I gauge it on the client and the inspector. Every inspector on my list, I know and I trust. So if they say, have your client meet me there at the end. And we will have the discussion, I will let that be the relationship between the inspector and the client. I will not go. Now, if I have a really needy client, y'all know who they are. If I have that needy client, then I'm gonna go. So, but what I don't want, and I tell my clients this too, that this is why I'm not going. I don't wanna get in a game of telephone. Where you tell me that I ask the inspector, then I come back to you, because if I miss something. Or I don't stress the importance of it, or I don't hear it as important as it really is from the inspector. I don't want that. I don't want to steer you wrong when you could have gone to the source about me. So that's what I tell my people, is that is a relationship between you and the inspector. They are wonderful, because you go on my list, they're wonderful. If you go with somebody else, then I might show up, just to get a feel for things and see if I should add them to my list and all that. But if you go with one of them on my list, I'm probably not going to. Number one, the inspectors, they don't, from what I hear, they don't want anybody there for 3 hours while they're doing the whole. That you're just in their way, now they gotta make small talk, it makes it take longer and all. But having the client come in so they can talk through, show them in person, that's wonderful. Again, I don't have anything to add to that conversation, I'm not an expert on any of that. And even if the inspector wasn't there, my advice would be, we'll ask the inspector. We'll ask the inspector. Because I can't do that myself, so that's kind of where I leave the expert stuff to the expert. Now, if there's a scenario where they need an agent there to let them in, or they're whatever it might be, obviously I'm gonna do that. But I really don't want to be that in between. I don't think it's necessary. I think the better conversation is client too. That's me personally. But then after, that's where having those experts and having that vendor list, and if y'all don't have that, start paying attention, like in that Connect app, when people are like, who has a roofer, or who has this and that? If there's a name that comes up 3 or 4 times, go ahead and start a list of that. Or if you're in Bluegrass Realtors for, and I need a. Crap, I'm supposed to take somebody back, I start from here, sorry. So like, I need an engineer, and you see the same name 4 or 5 times, start yourself that list, so that you don't have to ask the question, you've got it ready. Once you've been in it a while, you'll build those relationships naturally and get to know them yourself. But in the meantime, go with who the rest of us embedded. So as far as an inspection report, have y'all seen an inspection report yet? Okay. This is one, oops, I should have locked out the name and stuff. This is kind of what we get. Now, again, this one does not color code it, and I apologize, I actually was gonna pull up.
Do you want me to send you one?
Nah, you're fine. I've got some screenshots of one.
Cause I have Amy here on
Yeah.
her my list.
A lot of them will color code it, again, blue or whatever, not green, but like blue and then orange or yellow and red. To kind of stagger things. If I have a really young, like a first time buyer, and if they say something like, dad, if they're gonna get dad involved, my dad's gonna help, the blah, blah. No, well, let's not, sweetie, let's not, I want you to be empowered here. Why don't we take a look at an old inspection report together, so that you have an idea of what to expect on yours? And if you wanna ask your dad for advice, that's great, but that doesn't mean. Dad's gonna blow up the steel, but we don't. So anyway, they should document the weather, rainy, windy, snowy, all that, blah, blah, blah. And you'll have pictures of pretty much everything, and if there are issues, you'll have pictures. So they'll tell you, like, this is properly installed and in good condition. They'll tell you if something wasn't tested. I don't know why we didn't do that. But they'll go through all of the things. And all of the problems, potential, I wanted to find one, they're gonna show you service panels, all things. If there's switches, GCI devices, we need to have GCI in kitchens. If it's an older home, and again, I talk about this at showings, especially if we're on showing 3 or 4 and I'm running out of things to talk about. Oh, just so you know, I see this kitchen doesn't have GFCI outlet. That's because it was built in 1964 when they didn't make those. So your inspector is gonna say that you have this. But that's up to you if you're gonna enforce things like that. Let me. So like things like this. Here's an inspector who says. And this was an older home. Okay, installation is out of place and in poor condition. Significant number of damage, we recommend it be replaced or secured back. This would be a conversation piece at buyer. Okay? If they wanted to talk about, okay, so we know this, now that we know this. Can you install insulation? Can your dad install insulation? Do we need the seller to install insulation? Or do you wanna live in a house without insulation? Not up to me to make the decision. But those are the things that we're gonna talk. When we get to. And again, this is very. Inspector language, huh?
You're so detailed.
Yeah,
I love it.
lines should be monitored. Okay, are you gonna monitor those? Okay, we're good. Do we need the seller to replace all of the plumbing in the house? Because again, your 1964 house, you've offered $220,000 on $230,000 list price. And this is the 6th offer we've made, and you didn't get any of the others, but you got this one. Are we gonna live with this, or what are we gonna do? And we have those conversations. Okay, this roof is great, roof is in good shape, good condition, no issues there. Asphalt will deteriorate before the rest of the roof. Okay, monitor, they didn't say just monitor, okay, you should do that. I did wanna show. Again, okay, water heater estimated to be 12 years old, life of a water heater, I wanna say is 15 to 20. But again, we talked about that at the show. The water heater works, if you were the seller, would you pay for a new water heater just because it's 12 years old? No, I would not, then is this something we're gonna ask? Well, probably not. Instead, can I interest you at home? Now, there are going to. This one did say no action is indicated, okay. There are times you have to ask for repairs, and the seller's agent, if they're good, and if you're a seller's agent. You're gonna wanna see those pieces of the inspection. To say, show me what you're looking. Show me what these issues are, so I can show it to my seller, so we can discuss them. Well, remember what, that home inspection was paid for by your buyer. It belongs to your buyer, it is their property. Never send the whole thing. If I'm a listing agent, I don't want the whole thing, and I'm not going to open it. I will tell you that right now. Because if you're the listing agent. And you open that inspection report, what are you now responsible? disclosing every single thing on that inspection report. I don't need that level of responsibility. I don't, because what if there is something that I think, oh, that's not a big deal, but then it turns out it is? Do not send me that inspection report, I'm not going to open it. But what I do as the buyer's agent, and what I want as the listing agent, is send me screenshots of the relevant portions. So this is an example of that. And you'll see these got labeled, because we were an FHA loan, so we were like, oh, this might be something you don't want to choice it, that might be an FHA loan. So what we did is we pulled the pictures of the relevant parts, not the whole thing. But the relevant parts, and all we got, this was a draft that went to my buyers. This was not what I sent to the sellers, because we did this down a little bit, because their list was major, and we didn't think that and we actually, when we discussed it verbally, they were not going to do all of this, so I used this with my buyer to kind of prioritize. So like, there's no vapor barrier, and the inspector showed the picture of the high moisture level. That's what we need to show them. Look, there's evidence of high moisture. Now we need to get in remediation and get a quote, see what it costs. Potential leak on the roof. Now, see, this is where you see, and I'm not sure, covering, approaching, and the block. If that was all it was, the roof covering, approaching, and the black. Again, we do that at the showing, how old the roof was. If that was all it was, I'm probably gonna tell my people, we can ask, but they're probably not gonna put a whole new roof on. But then it went to, hey, we've got evidence and picture of, again, this is why I don't moisture meter. We've got a 99.9 reading on a moisture reader on this part of the interior ceiling. And when we go up on the roof, we see visible damage. So this is what we wound up saying, of like, this needs to be fixed in order for us to move. This needs to be fixed. So you have to kind of take the whole thing and weed it down to, okay, what actually needs. Does that make sense? My biggest thing on this, and what I tell my buyers and what I tell my sellers, because I actually have a scenario. We're closing, actually it's closed Wednesday, but we're not, we're gonna close next week. It's fine, not too guys. But anyway, there was an issue in the basement. And the seller, no, I had the sellers, the buyers asked for an $8,000. It was an $8,000 credit going forward. So again, have a conversation with me. I said, why $8,000? Okay, for $8,000? No, they just feel like $8,000 would cover it. I mean, $8,000 would cover a lot of things, but, or maybe it wouldn't in this case, because we don't know. So it became me having the conversation with my sellers, but like, I mean, you can give them $8,000 if you want, we'll move forward, but wouldn't you rather get an expert out here, let the expert evaluate the problem, tell you how much it cost to fix it, was $4,200, which is still a lot, but not $8,000. What will it actually cost to fix it before we agree to anything? Not just throwing around numbers or throwing around this. Or same deal, if the buyer could switch it from a credit and said this item needs to be fixed. Before we're agreeing to that, we need to have the expert come and tell us how much it will cost to fix it. Because again, in this case, it was $4,200. Maybe that's a make or break for my seller. And my seller says we can't pay $4,200 to fix this. In which case we have to go back and renegotiate. Does that make sense? So my biggest thing that I always tell my buyer, seller, whichever side I'm on, is before we agree to anything, we need to know an exact amount. If you're my buyer, I don't want you to accept a number that we made up and then find out after closing that it's gonna cost more than that. And if you're my seller, I don't want you to agree to give somebody money when we could have gotten it done for cheaper. Does that make sense?
How many quotes do you usually get?
If that's up to my seller or my client, and I will say this again, game of telephone. I will give them the phone numbers of my vendors and say, here's who you should call. 9 times out of 10, I'm not doing it for them. That's another stay in your lane. I've been very trained on that, don't open yourself to that liability, stay in your lane. Let them have that relationship with the vendor. The only times there's been, gosh, when there was, I had the termite thing, that actually I had the sellers, the buyer agent and myself actually split a portion of paid for the termite thing. We split part of that, just because it was how to get the deal done. And in that case, I was on the phone with my guy, I met him there, we walked it through and did all the things. But most of the time, I wanna stay in my lane so that I'm not telling, cause I don't know, I've learned a lot just because I've seen a lot. So if I've experienced it, I have on a prior deal, I have some frame of reference. But I'm not an expert in any of this, so I've gotta turn it over to who it is. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And when you get that total cost from the expert, does that have to be disclosed to the other party, or could you use that?
Most of the time, I ask for an, show me the invoice, show me the estimate on letterhead, and most of the contractors are used to that.
Okay,
That to get anybody to agree to anything, they've gotta put in writing, what is the scope of work, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, we're gonna do this, and how much. And more, if they're a good contract, they'll do that. Even if it's like, I said, my termite house, it's like in the field, like writing it up, well, this many square feet, this many of this, here's your total cost, and now it's written. But yeah, get it in writing. And if it's a big one, like a foundation one, I had a big one in Frankfurt. They got 3 quotes and the difference was like $10,000 from high to low. They went with the middle. And we shared all of those quotes, I had the seller. We shared all of those quotes with the buyer and they mutually agreed with what you said and things like that. That's where also to have that communication with the other agent. At the end of the day, I don't feel like, at least, it is not me versus them. I'm going to do the best I can for my client. Absolutely, hands down, I will fight for my client, but I'm not fighting the other agent. We are all here to work together to get whatever we have to do. And then that brings us to whatever you decide. Has
These
to
are fun,
be
you're right.
in writing. Has to be in writing. So, and this is the updated form, use the updated forms, don't use the old stuff, there's a reason they updated it.
It'll be in the templates in your.
It's in the templates, but here's the problem, and maybe we'll ask him. Both of them are in the templates,
And they're not.
and they're not in order, and they're not
The
labeled.
one that I've been having fun with is the buyer representation 4 or 2.
Yeah,
It's tricky.
you can make your own folder in Dotloop.
I did,
So like, I made my own folder that puts what I need right there, because yeah, there's an older version of this. That, there's a reason they updated it, new and improved. But anyway, like anything, it is a contract. There are deadlines, expectations to meet, it is a contract. And this becomes an addendum to the, purchase. So ideally, buyer's agent fills this out first. You have, in my world, we've talked about it first. If I have the listing, I don't want, if there's a list of items, I don't want this to just pop up in my email of, you have a form from blah, 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 and we've not had a conversation about it. Because even if you send this to my email, I'm still gonna call you so that we can have a conversation about it, so that I can explain it to my seller. Yes, this is the documentation of it, but there should be a conversation going on. So buyers have requested and sellers agreed to make the following repairs. Some phrases you need to know. To be completed by licensed and insured professional. Every inspections agreement I write as a buyer, says that.
Question.
Mhm.
I believe that if it's in the fillables section, if you start typing, it will come up with a repair addendum script.
It can, yeah, I've turned off some of those.
Okay.
It got janky.
Yeah, cause you probably have better wording, but I still kind of use the script and then let it.
And there is in the folder, there's I think Bluegrass Realtors calls it, recommended phrase, contact phrases.
That's what I'm
Um,
talking about.
and your catch-all is all work to be completed by licensed insurer.
Mhm.
That keeps them from like, well, my neighbor Billy Bob will fix that for you. We don't want Billy Bob, thank you. So, and then they need to be specific. Whatever specific items you're asking for needs to be on here, and that can also, I'll be honest, that can be a tough conversation with your buyers. If they say, well, the phalange is broken. I'm making that word.
It's actually the flange in the toilet.
Oh, well, maybe I need to know why the phalange is, because that's what Phoebe says on. So if they say, if my buyer says, well, the phalange is broken. Okay, what do you want to do about that? That's kind of, so what do we do? What are we asking for? Do we want a new phalange? Do we want the phalange replaced? Do we want credit for it, so we can go to Walmart and buy a phalange? What are we asking? Cause I've also seen, I've received them from a buyer's agent when I've had the listing, and it'll say, phalange is broken. Your seller signed that, yes, it's broken, you didn't ask me for anything. You didn't ask them to repair anything, you just told us it was broken. By contract, we didn't agree to fix it, cool, great, thanks. So you have to be clear, well, what are we asking? Are we asking you to fix it? Are we asking, and this will come into play, are we asking for an extension to go that, remember, yes, we are contracts, yes, there are deadlines. But there can be an amendment that extends everything, so if you need more time. To make sure, hey, we need a phalange expert to come in, then that's what you ask for. But again, as the listing agent, you're gonna give me a date. You're not just gonna say, until a phalange expert comes. Okay, phalange expert is scheduled on such and such day. Keep things as specific as. But be specific with your request. Are we asking for a credit? In fact. Credits or price concessions come down here. Are you asking for a credit? This is something that I've noticed a lot of agents forget about or don't tell their sellers. All repairs shall be completed no later than 48 hours before closing, and sellers should give evidence to buyer of the completion. To me, and I told this at the beginning, again, I'm having these discussions to the other agent, I'll say, remember this part, and that a picture of it done is not all of the evidence I need. I love the picture, but I'm gonna need that paid invoice from Phalange Expert 101.
And I believe it has to be 48 hours because you're doing the final walkthrough.
Yes.
So you're also inspecting.
Yes.
What
Yes.
kind of work it was.
Yes, and if seller has signed this, and it is not done 48 hours prior to close, your seller is now in your contract. So you can't wait until the day of closing and, oh yeah, we have the plumber there to fix it. No. The work was done 48 hours prior.
Yeah, because you don't wanna get to the closing table and then be like, oh yeah, by the way, I
Right.
didn't fix that air.
Right. Now, we can talk about, if y'all want, we can talk about kind of ways to protect your people, because that's what you wanna do. You can also agree to a price concession or a credit. I also want y'all to see this one, because this is important too, this section 5, and I hate that it's on a page break. Say there's a roof issue and a plumbing issue in this map. And you or buyer's agent turns in this form, but roof is great. This right here says. That once the seller signs this. We are done with the inspection period. We are done, and I actually had this come up, we were in a 10-day inspection period. And on like day 6, we agreed to whatever repair it was, And then on day 8, the agent comes back to me and is like, oh, we need to ask for this too, we're still in our inspection period. And I had to, no, you are not. Unless you initial here. By signing this, you said, this is all we are asking for and our inspection period is done, done. Because that's what it says. In exchange for the seller to agree to make these repairs, the buyer waives and releases their termination right. Because you're saying, we've reached an agreement, even if it is on day 6 of a 10-day inspection period. You signed that you, now if there's more to inspect or anything like that, first of all, we're not signing it yet, why would we do that? But if there is, for some reason, you need to extend that, there's a spot to say that they're not releasing, they're not ending their inspection. But they didn't sign that, that's what happened. No. Contract, let me show you. And just like our sales contract, buyer signs first, sends to seller agent. Seller agent sends to client to sign. If the seller says, nope, not doing it, there's a separate portion, they sign that. If they won't sign, you fill it out here, and that's your evidence that I presented it to them. They're not agreeing, they won't even agree to sign to say they're not. You can go on. Then this same form is what you sign at the final walk. We've done the final walkthrough, everything is good, we're ready. One note, if there are no inspections or there's no repairs, nothing needed, green light, no. You still do and just put no repairs for us.
But just as is or.
As it, yeah, because again, that ends your. That ends your inspection. I'm trying to think. Now you can, because I actually have this, the one that's not putting it. There's a sump pump issue. That the company needs, we were supposed to close one, push back to always pay. But the sump pump company could not get them in to fix it until like August 14th. So we had kind of this to be closing, I'm the seller agent. So I enter, we'll close anyway.
Yep.
I was the buyer's agent, I would not, you know.
So it's an extension.
Well, we're not in the inspection anymore, so we have to extend closing. But buyers want to close, they want, they need money, we need to get everything moving forward. So what you can do is we'll do an amendment that survives closing. That essentially, everybody agrees that the amount for that is held in escrow by the public. So basically, the seller doesn't get that money. Whatever that portion is. Out of company holds. Then that money will be used to pay the sub people when they can get there after closing. If they don't come, or seller cancels it or something like that, that money is forfeited into the bottom. So then they, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there's always. Their contracts, but then you can always amend if needed, as long as everybody. So it's just kind of, where do the public nuisance fall?
I have a fun question. for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so you well know I have my listings. It's been a fun go. So now that I'm separated from or released from the one animal through, and I'm not handling the from buy side.
Okay.
She inspected my other listing.
Who's she, the client?
The client.
Okay.
So I was the dual agent on that. She's no longer in the picture, but I saw the inspection report.
If
My
my
clients did not.
If an agent has
So I would have to
material
give
knowledge
that
to you, that you don't have to give it to your client. But if to the seller, because that's the buyer's property.
right.
If an agent has material knowledge of material defects in a home, they are required to disclose that to all.
Okay, so because they're going reactive now, and I'm like, okay, as my listing. Do I need to tell them, hey, you need to be aware of
Double
this?
check, I would double check that with Bo or Tara,
Okay,
but my understanding, however we came to know that information, if we know about a defect in a home, we have.
yeah.
So double check.
So they didn't see it, I saw it because she was my client.
Double check. And that can be an issue, that can be an issue.
Don't know that I would want to do it.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Thank you all, bye bye. If you're there, bye Kirby, see you tomorrow. Oh, is somebody on?
Yeah, Kirby was.